How can someone like you work from home? Uneducated people like you are the worst. My mother-in-law always talks about me and finds a way to denigrating me. She doesn't know that the $1,500 she receives every month comes from my earnings. And to be humiliated like this in public, I'll give her what she deserves. My name is Jessica, and I am 35 years old. I have been married for 5 years, and we don't have children. We have been busy with our work and have decided to have children when we become more settled down. My husband frequently works overtime while I work from home and have more time to spare. Working from home is not unusual in this day and age, but my mother-in-law, who lives in a closed world in the countryside, does not seem to understand what working from home is. No matter how many times I explained to her that there are many people who work from home nowadays, she doesn't seem to get it. My mother-in-law thinks I am jobless scum who doesn't have children and lives a lazy life on her husband's earnings. I have been sending money to my in-laws every month, but she seems to think that it all comes from her son's income. There is no way he can send them $1,500 every month from his income alone. Jobless scum itself refers to people between the ages of 15 and 34. And I, unfortunately, do not fall into that category. I guess my mother-in-law just wanted to use that word to sound cool or something. She always brags about the fact that she graduated from college and worked as a nurse. And every time she does so, she looks down on me as I never went to college. I feel so bad for my precious son to be married to such a poorly educated, jobless scum. I've worked hard as a nurse and supported my husband by doing housework and childcare too. Nowadays, it's normal to have a dual income, isn't it? You don't have children. You don't take care of the house. And you spend your days doing nothing. I have told you many times that I work too. Nowadays, there are many jobs where you can work anywhere, as long as you have a computer and an internet connection. There is no way someone like you can work with a computer. Uneducated people like you are the worst. My mother-in-law always attacks me with such words to denigrate my personality when my husband and father-in-law are not around. The nearest store is a 15-minute walk from my house, but it's only a 3-minute walk to my parents-in-law's house. Even if I wanted to keep my distance from them, I live so close that I am physically unable to do so. She calls me every day and forces me to do household chores at her house. When I don't answer the phone, she forces her way into my home, ransacks my house, and complains about various things. And so, I have no choice but to go to my parents-in-law's house again. It's downpouring rain today, so my steps are heavier than usual. As soon as I arrived at my mother-in-law's house, she started talking fast and furious. I want you to organize the shed and wash the bedding at the laundromat today. And when you're done, make sure you have dinner ready for me. You're a lazy, jobless scum anyway. Why don't you help people out a little? I couldn't stand it and retorted, It's pouring today. Maybe we should clean the shed and wash the bedding on a nicer day. I've got a lot of work to do today, so I'll just leave you some food for dinner and go home. What work? I looked in your house the other day, but you were just playing on your computer.
Oh, so you peeked into our house?
It's my son's house. What's wrong with his mother peeking in? Just get on with it. I'm off to lunch with a friend for my work days. I'll be back in the evening. So get it done by then.
With that, my mother-in-law gets into her shiny new car that I just washed yesterday. No, that's actually my car.
A stay-at-home, jobless scum doesn't need a car. I'll use it for you.
And she treats it as if it were her own. Of course, I was the one who washed the car. She knew it was going to rain today, so she made me wash the car yesterday on purpose. When my mother-in-law moved the car, it ran into a puddle in front of our house and got all dirty in no time. My father-in-law is working as a rehired worker after his retirement, so there is no one to stop her misbehavior during the daytime. I thought about speaking to my mother-in-law, but if I did so, I might be harassed, verbally abused, or told off to the neighbors for something that never happened. I thought about talking to my husband about it many times as well, but I didn't want to worry him because he was exhausted from his hard work. I cleaned the shed and took the bedding to the laundromat in the rain. After that, I continued cooking dinner with wet hair and clothes on. I was told to make at least 5 side dishes and a soup, so I cooked while shivering in the cold. Since I was not allowed to turn on the heating while my mother-in-law was away, my body was chilled to the core. When I finished everything, it was already past 3 p.m. I tried to leave before my mother-in-law came home, but she came back at the wrong time.
Oh no! I see you're soaking wet.
My mother-in-law was grinning at my miserable appearance. Then she moved her eyes to the dishes on the table.
Don't tell me that you cooked in such an outfit. It's so dirty. I can't possibly eat this.
Saying that, she threw all the food into the trash. The soup in the pot on the stove was swept into the sink. I was out of words at how she treated me.
I can't eat something made in such a dirty way. You jobless scums don't even care about your appearance, do you? Wash the dishes and get out of here. I'll get something delivered today.
My mother-in-law said and went into her room. As I was washing the dishes, my eyes filled with tears of sadness and frustration that she had thrown away the food I had taken the trouble to cook. One day, after the same kind of days, there was a town association gathering at my in-laws' house, so naturally, it was up to me to prepare for it. I was busy in the kitchen, cooking and preparing drinks, and my husband suggested to help. But of course, my mother-in-law stopped him, saying,
"It's an occasional day off for you, so you should sit down and enjoy."
She tugged on her son's hand and pulled him away from me. Then, just as I thought she was coming back into the kitchen, she said in my ear,
"Don't eat with us, you nitwit scum. You embarrass me and my son,"
and turned her back on me. I let her harass me and stayed in the kitchen, doing the dishes just as I was told. Both my mother-in-law and the town association members seemed to have had a lot of drinks. I could hear my mother-in-law laughing in a good mood from the living room. My husband and father-in-law, who love children were playing with the children from our neighborhood in the yard. When I went to the living room to collect the empty plates, I was approached by the town chairman. "Why don't you sit down and eat a little?" To that, I couldn't dare to say, "My mother-in-law told me not to eat with everyone." So I smiled affectionately and just said, "Thank you very much for your offer." As I was collecting up the empty plates, thinking it felt nice to have somebody who cared, I accidentally knocked over the chairman's cup. The cup, which was full of alcohol, had the chairman's clothes soaked. "I'm sorry." The chairman laughed it off and forgave me. My mother-in-law, who never moved a step from her seat, looked at me from afar, amused. After that, my mother-in-law was overly cheerful and continued to talk ill of me and brag happily. "I am sorry for causing you so much trouble. Such an unfriendly wife. She's been playing on the computer every day instead of doing housework. I have to go to her house every day to take care of her because her house is a disaster. I took the trouble to cook for her, but she threw all of it in the trash. I guess food for youngsters are different from what we eat. The other day, I had to go to a laundromat to wash her bedding in the rain. The bedding got wet, and she ended up yelling at me. I thought she was going to hit me or something. On the other hand, my son sends me money every month. He's a really good son, you know." My mother-in-law, perhaps in a high state of mind due to alcohol, was talking in a loud voice that echoed throughout the room. I was getting angry at my mother-in-law's continuous lies. I had reached the end of my patience. I could forgive her if she only harassed me, but I couldn't forgive her for telling the whole town about what never happened and being such a drama queen. I would not let her continue to do as she pleased. Excuse me, but who is that you're talking about? Everything you just said is what you have been doing to me, isn't it?" "Hey, what are you talking about? I would never do such a thing." I guess my mother-in-law didn't expect me to talk back, so she said back with her widened eyes, "When did you ever do housework, saying that you're going out with your former colleagues every day?" "No way! I don't have time for that. I have my hands full with housework." "You know, I know what you're up to. I know that you've been seeing a man outside the house." My mother-in-law was obviously flustered by my sudden revelation. "What? What nonsense!" My mother-in-law might have thought she was calmly denying it, but her voice was trembling. At such a commotion, my husband and father-in-law also came back from the yard, where they were playing with the children. Now is the time for payback. People around us were also looking at me with curiosity, so it's time for me to be rebellious. "Mom, what's wrong? Why are you shouting?" My panicked husband asked my mother-in-law. "Jessica is terrible. She says I'm meeting a man outside the house. She doesn't even have any proof." She looked at her son with clinging eyes. All eyes were on me at once. I took this opportunity to reveal my evidence. The drive recorder in my car had a clear recording of you flirting with a young unknown man. "What? A drive recorder? What's that?" You didn't know? A drive recorder records audio from inside the car. I just happened to find out during the car inspection. If you want, I have the data, so I can play it here for you.
What? Who's going to trust you, a jobless scum, living on your husband's money?
How can you say such a thing to Jessica?
My father-in-law interrupted the argument between my mother-in-law and me with an angry look on his face. However, my mother-in-law was not to be outdone by my father-in-law.
Because it's true, isn't it? Jessica just stays at home and does nothing but lazily plays around on the computer,
she exclaimed, but her face turned pale when she noticed the cold stares of the people around her. Come to think of it, I saw the wife frequently visiting her mother-in-law's house.
Maybe it's true that she's forced
to do housework.
I also saw the mother often get in the car and leave.
So, is it true what the wife said? That the mother meets men outside the house?
I heard whispering from all around us.
What? This is all a lie. Don't listen to her.
My mother-in-law shouted desperately, trying to make excuses. Then my husband sighed and said to my mother-in-law,
Mom, Jessica is not a jobless scum. She is a designer, and she makes much more money than I do.
What? What do you mean? That's not possible. All she does is play on the computer every day.
My mother-in-law panicked. Yes, in fact, I am a designer. After graduating from a design company and working there for several years, I took the plunge and started my own business when I got married. At first, it was just pocket money, but recently, I have been blessed with clients and have been able to make much more money than when I was working at the company. When my mother-in-law asked me what I do, I thought she wouldn't understand if I said I was a designer. So I explained that I draw pictures. Maybe she didn't understand because she had no idea about working from home in the first place. Still, I didn't expect her to treat me so badly. But it doesn't matter now. I don't expect my mother-in-law to understand what I do.
You know what? Even the $1,500 I send home every month comes out of Jessica's earnings.
My father-in-law was astonished at the confession.
What? $1,500? I've never heard about you sending money to us every month. Don't tell me you've been spending it without telling Dad.
No, that's not true. The money is for, well, helping people. I donate it to people in need.
My mother-in-law's excuses no longer made any sense. Oh, please, stop trying. The money was lost in pocket money for your boyfriend, wasn't it? I know that because it was properly recorded. When I added that, my mother-in-law glared at me with a face like a devil. But behind her, my father-in-law, who had an even more terrifying satanic expression, had his face red with anger.
You. Not only did you make fun of Jessica, but you even cheated on me and mocked me.
No, I wasn't. Jessica lied. I never cheated on you. Believe me.
My mother-in-law is clinging to my father-in-law's leg and sobbing.
Let's see what you have to say after we listen to the recording of the evidence. Jessica, can you play it here?
Don't, please.
My mother-in-law was about to go crazy.
Shut up. Is there something you don't want me to hear?
My mother-in-law finally gave up and became quiet. I solemnly put my phone on the table and pressed the play button. There was a perfect recording of a young man's voice and my mother-in-law's sweet purring voice. We could clearly hear her giving money to the man as he begged her. And then she was excitedly trying to bring him to a motel. My husband was nauseous, and the neighbors looked uncomfortable, but their eyes were sparkling with curiosity. It was basically a living nightmare. In the midst of it all, I was nodding my head at the joy of finally being able to expose my mother-in-law's evil deeds to the light of day. I pressed the stop button at my father-in-law's instruction without playing the recorded data of the evidence until the end. My father-in-law quietly opened his mouth.
Apologize to Jessica and get out of here. I don't want to see your face,
he told my mother-in-law. In the end, my mother-in-law glared at me and left without apologizing to anyone.
I'm sorry, Jessica. I'm sorry I've been out working all the time and didn't notice a thing.
My father-in-law apologized to me in that way. He had nothing to apologize for. My mother-in-law's harassment had been carefully planned so that no one would ever find out about it. If I hadn't said anything, nobody would have known. You have done nothing wrong. You're like a real father to me. I put my hand on his shoulder.
Thank you. I'll handle everything else. I won't let her do whatever she wants anymore. I'm sorry to all of you for causing so much trouble.
After saying that, my father-in-law followed my mother-in-law out of the house. The neighbors who were there seemed relieved to see the end of the drama. They poured me a drink and comforted me. I told them everything that had happened, and I was able to have a very pleasant time. A few months later, my father-in-law and mother-in-law ended up getting a divorce. My mother-in-law's affair partner was a stripper, and my mother-in-law fell for his pillow talk and spent not only the money but also the savings for after retirement. After that, my mother-in-law has been living in a cheap apartment in a neighboring state with nowhere to go, working part-time at a concession stand to pay off the alimony to my father-in-law and the savings she had spent. But why is she working part-time at a concession stand? Why not at a hospital where she could work as a nurse? I asked my father-in-law.
Did she say something about being a nurse? She just worked in a store that hospital workers use. She's always been the type to make herself look bigger.
He sighed. I now live comfortably at my own pace, with no one interrupting my work or forcing me to do unreasonable housework. I visit my in-laws once every 3 days to do chores, and my father-in-law is very appreciative each time. My husband is much more settled in his work now, and we found out I was pregnant, just as he was relieved from his busy work schedule. My husband, my father-in-law, and neighbors have been very supportive, caring about my health and helping me out in various ways. I think the reason I was able to wash away everything from my past is because I am happy and content with my life now. From now on, I would like to live a peaceful and happy life while appreciating my baby, my husband, my father-in-law, and my neighbors.